สวัสดีค่ะ Welcome to Hot Thai Kitchen. Well, here in Vancouver, we finally have our summer this year. I think this is the first warm weekend in a long time. People are starting to bring out their barbecue, so I thought I would share with you a really classic Thai recipe that you can put on your barbecue. I'm making kho mu yang. Kho mu is pork neck, literally, and yang means to grill. And when we say pork neck, we actually mean pork jowl, which is one of the tastiest and underappreciated cut in the pig. So let's take a look at what this recipe is all about. Let's get started. So this is pork jowl, and you can't mistake it for anything. It's a very unique looking piece. It's very thin. Now in Thailand, they tend to leave more of a fat on this, but here they've taken most of the fat on. That's okay. But if you like fatty grilled pork, leave more of the fat on if you can. Now I get this at an Asian grocery store. You might need to look at either Asian stores or specialized butcher for this. It's a little hard to find, okay? So the marinade is very simple and a really classic Thai barbecue marinade actually. I'm going to start out with some white peppercorns. I'm going to just grind that up first. And I like to grind dry stuff separately because once you start adding herbs and whatnot, they don't grind as well. Alright, so now that it's nice and fine, I'm going to add my herbs. I have got some garlic, some thinly sliced lemongrass, and some cilantro stems. If you can find cilantro roots, you can go ahead and add that. I don't have them anymore. Ooh, off they go. And now you want to get this pretty fine. So now that it looks kind of like a paste, it will smell amazing. So good. Now I'm going to add some palm sugar. You can just use regular white sugar for this if you don't have it. And I'm going to pound this just to make sure they're all dissolved. All right, so now that your sugar is dissolved, now you could just finish everything in here. I'm going to transfer it into a clear bowl so you guys can see better. And by the way, this marinade is good on chicken. You can use it on beef, whatever you want to throw on the barbecue. On chicken wings would be so good. Now I'm going to add my liquid seasoning, and that is some oyster sauce, some basic Thai pantry staple ingredients, some soy sauce to add aroma, richness, and also some liquid so that it absorbs into the pork. I'm going to add some coconut milk. Now, some people in Thailand like to use evaporated milk instead these days. I prefer using coconut milk. It's more traditional, and also now it's dairy-free, so I don't have to worry about somebody having issues. And give this a good stir, and that's pretty much it. That's a marinade right there. And now I'm just gonna put my marinade all over the pork, and that's it. I like to do this a day in advance so it can have a whole day to marinate, but if you can get a couple of hours, that's just fine. And there's quite a bit of liquid here. The pork is going to absorb much of that into the meat. For any Thai barbecue, you want to have something called nam tim jao as your dipping sauce. Now, I've made nam tim jao in a couple other recipes, so I'll put those links in the description below as well, or also up here. But today, I want to take this opportunity to show you a different version. Just, it's always good to have different options, right? This one's a little thicker, a little sweeter, goes super well with this pork. So I'm actually going to cook it. So I'm going to start out with a little pot, and I'm going to melt my palm sugar. And yes, you definitely want to use palm sugar for this because you want that depth of flavor. And some tamarind, quite a bit of tamarind. I actually got inspired by my recent trip to Thailand where I went to this barbecue place and they had this thicker, sweeter jowl that was really quite good. Now to help this dissolve without drying out, I'm going to just add a splash of water. Oh, look at that. Okay, so now that it has completely dissolved, I'm just gonna cook it for just a minute or so longer to get it a little thicker. That looks perfect. Heat off, but while it's still hot, I'm gonna add finely diced shallots, and the residual heat from the dipping sauce will help wilt and distribute all that oniony flavor. If you are thinking, wait a minute, she hasn't used fish sauce yet in her pork, not to worry. Here it is. And I'm using my good smooth fish sauce for this, which by the way, if you want to have a couple of different types of fish sauce, your smoother, more expensive one is perfect for dipping sauces, where sort of the cheaper one is great for cooking in general. I'm going to transfer it just into my bowl here just to help it cool down a little faster and so you can see better too. of course, it has to be spicy. So I'm gonna add Thai roasted chili flakes. You can use cayenne pepper if you don't have it, and you'll be able to add more cayenne pepper because it's not as spicy. This stuff is really spicy because I made this myself. So I can only add a little bit. I'm gonna add, for thickening and also for aroma, some toasted rice powder. If you follow the show, you've seen me make this several times, but if not, if this is new to you, don't worry, I'll put all the information in the written recipe, and also give you a link to a video that shows you exactly how it's made down below. Oh yes. I still have some lime juice that's gonna go in. We've got some tamarind, but I never find that tamarind is quite tart enough. It's always a little bit sweet on the sweet side. So I'm just gonna add some lime juice, but the measurement for this, you kind of have to taste and adjust because it's going to differ depending on how tart your tamarind is. Makes me salivate. Give this a quick taste. Oh, so good. So just before serving, I'm going to throw in some fresh cilantro, but now we gotta grill the pork. All right, so here I am on the balcony grilling. It's a beautiful day, perfect day for it. Now, if you don't have a barbecue for this, you can just use, what do you call it? The oven. Put it under the broiler, okay? So I've got my grill, I'll heat it up. Woo! Smoky. I've oiled it, and now I'm just gonna put down my pork. Yeah, and that sizzle is what you want, and I'm getting smoked, a smoked pie. The thing with this is the pork is so thin, it's only gonna take a few minutes, and I'm not gonna actually close the lid. I have found that if I close the lid, it cooks the pork way too quickly. Like it's because it's so thin, and it didn't have time to get any grill marks before it became overcooked. So obviously every grill is different. I've got mine set on high because I'm leaving it open, so it's losing a lot of heat off the top. And with this cut of pork, you don't want to cook it well done because it's not a tender cut. It's a bit chewy, so you want it almost medium. Okay, let's see. Oh, yes. That looks nice. And as you can see, this part is curled up around the edges. That happens sometimes, and what that is some tendon or some connective tissue that is sort of shrinking and pulling all the meat up with it. That will be chewy. So if you see a part that's curled up, just trim it off. So you want to make sure you give the meat a rest. Don't cut it immediately after you pull off the grill, otherwise all the juices will run out, okay? For a thin piece like this, I would say 5-10 minutes is plenty. And so it's very important you cut this against the grain, which is very obvious on this piece because the grain runs lengthwise like this. But if you don't do that, it's very chewy. And what I like to do is go a little bit sideways because it's so thin that if you do it straight down, you get like tiny little pieces. So most of the time in Thailand, you see people serve it sideways and go pretty thin. Again, this is a really tasty cut, but it's not always tender if you cut it too thick. This is perfect. Look at that. Perfect doneness. You want still to be a little bit pink in the middle. Just finish it off with some fresh cilantro. Ooh, look at that. Now, one mistake here I made is I should have waited till the last minute to stir in the toasted rice powder so it doesn't absorb too much liquid, but this is okay. Et voila! There is a plate of some authentic Thai barbecue. If you have some sticky rice, it's perfect. Little dip. And see, because this one is a little thicker, it'll stay on the pork better. It's so good. Oh, that pork. I'm just gonna taste a piece just straight up, just so I can really taste the pork. Excuse my hand. See, what's unique about this cut is it's such a flavorful cut of pork. You know how you eat like a pork chop? The middle of the pork chop is like the blandest thing ever. But this, because it has a lot of fat running through, it's flavorful throughout. And the marinade is, of course, helping with that too. You can really taste that coconut milk and the garlic and the lemongrass. Wow, and if you want to like step it up a notch, that dipping sauce is perfect. So I hope you give this recipe a try. Definitely the next time you bring out your barbecue, put this on the menu. You won't regret it. So the recipe, as always, will be on hotthaikitchen.com. When you make it, send me a photo on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And if you love the show and you'd like to support us, check out our Patreon page. I'll put the link in the description below. And I will see you next time for your next delicious Thai meal.